switch seats on.
Yeah. Keep me on your toes.
The Raptors are very different now than when you saw them last. How does that kind of affect your preparation and what they're looking to do?
They're certainly different from a personnel standpoint. I think they're still, the way they're playing is consistent. You know, they're really running, you know, playing in transition. You know, Scotty Barnes is unique. He drives what they do, whether it be in isolation situations, in pick and roll, in the post. You know, so as you mentioned, you know, they are different, but in some ways they're similar.
When you score 143 points and scoring at that amount, you expect to win. How do you refocus after a game like one like that?
Yeah, it was a really unusual game. You know, to your point, you know, that usually when you're as effective offensively as we were, if you don't win, you know, we had a chance late, whatever, but we obviously had a hard time containing Doncic, which is not uncommon, but he was in kind of a unique space in that game. I think the fact that Kyrie didn't play, you know, he played almost the whole game. We tried to do, you know, everything we could from a tactical standpoint, and he's so unique in that he makes plays so many different ways. But you know, I guess a learning experience on some level, that even when a player is going like that, you know, your execution in multiple situations, you know, we need to continue to work on it. But not letting us off the hook in any way. There's other things you have to do to mitigate that. But again, there's part of it that is, that game's behind us, you know, learn from it and be ready to go tonight.
Coach, I know you just said the game's behind you, but when you think about, you know, the night that Doncic had, you look around the league, the amount of players that have scored as much as they have. When you're on the other side of that as a team, does it galvanize you in any way to make sure that you're not disrespected for a game like this against Toronto?
I don't think that anybody that knows this game and knows the NBA sees what he did in some way as disrespectful to us. You know, we would like for it to be different, to be better. You watch the film, and there's situations where we were, you know, I would have liked to be, you know, closer to him on his right hip where he shoots his step back. But at 6'8", you know, he's able to get that shot off, and there's not a lot you can do about it unless you don't let him get the ball. And you know, picking him up full court and trapping him to get it out of his hands, he stops bringing it up, and he's playing off the ball. And then he comes and screens on the ball and forces a switch, and they throw it back to him for post. So there's a lot of things. He's so familiar with different schemes against him that it's very natural for him to play in those situations. So, yeah, I think that always hits you as a competitor. It's why, you know, you try to make adjustments during the course of the game. That said, as you saw him late, he was content. You know, as we started to even get more aggressive, trapping him and picking him up, you know, everything that we did, he was finding other people. And so, as I said, you know, we need to be better, but you know, 70 is different than 50, no question. I'd be lying if you know, we weren't looking up there and going, geez, you know, we wish we could do more. You want to do more. But at one point, you know, I remember the score's tied, you know, so, but it's really hard to divorce yourself from that when you want to do more, you know, and you try to do more. But again, I don't think that he's I don't know, I wouldn't say he's done that to a lot of teams. He's done it, you know, depending on how you define that. You know, I felt that in the playoffs a couple of years ago when we were in Utah, and you know, you have a lot of time to prepare. So it's as I said, learn from it. There's other great players in this league, and you know, get ready to play tonight.
How did Trey bounce back from his first game?
I thought he played well. You know, we were conscious of minutes restriction. You know, and his rotation was a little different. You know, there was times you were pulling him out when you wanted to leave him in, at least for a minute or two. and he doesn't have that restriction tonight. So but I thought his first game back, he was ready to play.
Coach, I know you're not in the business of excuse making, but you mentioned just the unique circumstances in the past few games, right? Luka being on another planet, essentially, Sacramento being on, their rest period that they had, and then Golden State having the emotional toll that game took. How do you sort of describe these last few games and sort of put it behind you going into this next stretch at home?
It seems like we've had a lot of that, to be honest with you, whether it be some injury situations or, hot players and Doncic. And I guess the thing for me is to continue to focus on, our competitiveness in particular. Watching the film and seeing, are we making quick decisions? Is the ball stopping? Are we executing and at an efficient, solid level, and then someone's making a play, or are we breaking down? And is that responsible, largely for a team scoring? So it's hard to stay focused on the quote-unquote process. We all try to do that, but inevitably we live in a world of you're judged by the results, and so keeping that in balance, and try to keep perspective. But at the same time, when people look at our record at the end of the year, no one's going to say, well, Sacramento had 4 practices, 4 days off, and lost 5 in a row. That one's okay. So, and we don't do that either. I certainly don't.
Coach, Wesley Matthews was inducted into Marquette's Basketball Hall of Fame yesterday. Can you just talk about the leadership tendencies that he has on this squad and how that's kind of transferred over to you guys from there?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a heck of a program. So to be in the Hall of Fame in Marquette is no easy task. And I think he's been, from the time that he got to Marquette to now, Wes has been someone that you can always rely on for a level of competitiveness and intensity. He's just a winner. And, sometimes that, right now at this point in his career, he's not playing consistent rotational minutes. He's been banged up a few times. That it also puts even more of a premium on, his voice and his leadership. And he's someone that, our other players, younger players in particular, that can look to, that demonstrates those things, that has demonstrated them, and is aware of how important they are. So it's, if I were a young player, I'd be grateful that he were on the roster and have the ability to learn from him. And I know our guys feel the same.
Quin Snyder had that over 12 a couple of games ago, but he's bounced back the last 3.
Yeah.
Could you speak to this professionalism and going through this tear?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's why, when you're in a hitting slump, right? Sometimes whatever you do to help tweak that, and I know, his mental toughness. You're going to come out of it, and his mental toughness is one of the things that makes him, his toughness and also his mental toughness on both levels, I think, is something that makes him unique. The thing that I think is, for me in watching him play, his ability to make a quick decision and not overthink a shot and think more about, is that my shot? Is that a good shot? And to not hesitate. And I think over time, when you are a good shooter, which he is, that there's that thing called the law of averages. And it has a way of playing itself out if you hang in there. And the other thing that I would mention is, when you're not shooting well, sometimes you can go within and focus only on that. And really, that's a challenge, because you can look at the box score and those things are objective. But what he's done is he continues to go to the boards. He continues to defend. All those other things that you can do to, impact winning. And I'd like to see him rewarded for that. And that work ethic and his approach.
Coach, when you eventually get Kobe Buffkin back from College Park, what do you want for him to have gotten out of that experience?
I want him to stay vested in College Park, you know, and that's been unbelievably important for him. You know, I think sometimes when people look at an assignment, you know, it's like an advent calendar, you know, like you're counting days till you're out of there. And that, he hasn't done that. He's started, you know, I talk to Ryan Schmidt, you know, their coach, obviously, all the time. And, you know, I haven't had a chance to watch every game, but I've watched highlights of every game. And the highlights I watch are things like him diving on the floor. And I've seen his defense and the things that are going to have him, that are going to help him impact. That's the goal. You know, I mean, the goal is to, that's why they, you know, they don't call it the development league anymore, but, you know, the G League is there for guys to get better. And you know, everybody's got a different path. And people get hung up on looking at everybody else's, you know, development path. And oftentimes the people that you perceive as having something quicker, you know, the habits and the emphasis and the work and the learning and the experience, that foundation, you know, allows for consistent and continued growth. And I think that's been the goal that he's embraced. And, you know, in doing that, you know, you're more prepared to play. So I'm sure that time will come, but I also hesitate to devalue what he's doing now by putting some, you know, end date on it. You know, and that's not to say that won't come. You know, but the thing he's done again is to just be in the present, and he's embraced all of the things that you have an opportunity. If he's, you know, picking up, you know, minutes every here and there in an NBA game, that's not as useful to him as what he's doing now. Now there'll come a point when that's you've done that and you've evolved, and there's other experiences you want to overlay on that, and that you know, we believe in Kobe in that place too. But I'm basically stating what he's doing, you know, and so clearly he's embraced that and he's thinking about it the right way. And that's, you know, College Park is a big part of what we're doing. You know, pretty soon we're going to have Mo Gay have an opportunity to play. Veet's going to be down there playing. Seth has been there and up, and we see that integration between those two programs as being essential to, you know, what we're trying to do as a larger program within our organization.
Thanks, Coach.
Okay.
Thank you.